Good afternoon, good evening. I guess we could even say bonjour, because virtually speaking, coming to you from Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, for this race number 1, season number 2 of the INDYCAR iRacing Challenge. My name is Jake Query from INDYCAR Radio, alongside Katie Kyle. And Katie, here is the reality. Maybe we're not technically speaking in Montreal, but nonetheless, people have been chomping at the bit for more racing. The wintertime, the cold weather, it's all behind us now. Racing season is upon us, and what better way to start it than race number 1, season number 2 here of the INDYCAR iRacing Challenge.
Yeah, Jake, it's rainy and dreary all day here in Indianapolis, and I am certainly ready for racing. I know you all have doing the countdown until Barber. We're just a few weeks away from kicking off the real INDYCAR season, but I love filling that gap with this INDYCAR iRacing Challenge, as these drivers are passionate and they are ready to race too, Jake.
And they are passionate about this simulator racing and getting in there. And we'll let you folks know over the course of this broadcast how you too can become iRacers. And I know more and more people, Katie, are getting involved in this. And it's not only a great way to meet other race fans and other people who enjoy getting in there, but also to kind of master your craft and get familiar with everything that goes into driving these cars when you do get out, as you'd mentioned, in the INDYCAR series.
Yeah, memberships right now, if you go to iRacing.com, are 40% off, which is a great addition for you INDYCAR fans out there. You could even have a chance to race against some of your favorite INDYCAR drivers. These guys, though, Jake, have been practicing all week long. You and I have been here in the studio for a few hours already, and most of our drivers have been on practicing and qualifying that entire time.
I was going to say, we can, folks, look in and we can see, and again, we'll get you the information on how you can do that as well, to see the different drivers throughout the course of this event, but they haven't stepped out. Everybody's making sure that they're mastering every turn, getting down what they need to about this circuit.
Yeah, one driver that I've noticed is Scott Mclaughlin. He has been on the entire time since I got here today. I can see him, his bright red gloves. He's got a new sim rig. He's fired up for this season 2 of the INDYCAR iRacing Challenge.
And of course, when we talk about this particular event, and Katie will run down for us the other tracks that we're going to see with INDYCAR iRacing Challenge here coming up in this spring season, if you will. But let's start by talking about the event that we are going to see today. I'm talking about, as I'd mentioned, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Now, this opened in 1978, named, of course, for the fantastic Formula One driver from the Montreal area, the father of 1995 Indy 500 winner Jacques Villeneuve. And you can see 2.71 miles. Katie actually just did the conversion for me. That's 4.36 kilometers.
Math is my forte.
That's right. 14 turns. But again, challenging course, Katie, whether we're talking about just the simulators or when you're racing it in general. But this is going to be a challenge today.
Jake, this track, even at first glance, looks challenging. You see those really long straightaways, which means high speeds, even on iRacing, and then those high straightaways lead into some really tight corners, which is a whole other challenge.
You know, it's interesting when you watch and you can see, as we've been watching in and looking at the intensity, not to belabor the point, Katie, but the reality is for these drivers, yes, there is fun that goes into it. Yes, there is the sportsmanlike, we'll call it trash talk for lack of a better phrase. But the reality is the competition still comes out, the competitive nature. And for some of these drivers, maybe it's just simply a matter of trying to better their craft here with the iRacing. For others, like a Sage Karam, they're used to winning in this series.
Absolutely. And Alex Polo is another one that spends a lot of time on iRacing as well. One of my favorite about this iRacing Challenge is that some of these virtual rivalries turn into real on-track rivalries.
Now, have you been to Montreal?
I have not.
It's a beautiful city, beautiful racetrack, and we're going to get very
I'm going there
familiar
tonight,
with it.
though.
That's right. That's exactly right. We're there right now, right?
Yes.
We are there right now. Now, qualifying, as we had talked about, this has been something where these drivers have been going over throughout the course of the afternoon, and we're going to get the qualifying results in that starting grid to get an idea where everybody is starting. But I want to talk about those that are new to it, Katie, that we're seeing here for maybe for some folks the very first time, because they're not used to seeing some of these drivers in INDYCAR racing.
So a great addition to season 2 of the INDYCAR iRacing Challenge, Jake, is the addition of some Road to Indy drivers. We've got Braden Eaves joining us this week as the Road to Indy featured driver. Simon Sykes and Nikita Lestoshkin are also joining us. They're filling in for the Ed Carpenter Racing drivers.
And when we talk about, as we had mentioned, those who have won here before, we know that Sage Karam, for example, last year when so many people were excited to watch this iRacing, he was the first to go out and take the checkered flag. But let's see how they qualified and where they will line up for this event tonight in Montreal. As we take a look here at the results from qualifying, and there you see it in row number 1, Alex Polo and Katie, Alex Polo in a new paint scheme in that car number 10.
He's joining Chip Ganassi Racing this year. He looks good in that NTT number 10. He'll start alongside Team Penske's newest addition, Scott McLaughlin.
Takuma Sato, the Indianapolis 500 winner, alongside with James Davison in row number 2. And then Katie had mentioned Braden Eaves. You see him in row number 3 alongside a returner to the INDYCAR series coming up this season, talking about Pietro Fittipaldi.
Certainly good to see him back in INDYCAR for the first time since 2018. Moving to row 4, that's Nikita Lestoshkin filling in for the 21 of Ed Carpenter Racing, starting alongside Sage Karam. He's filling in for the 98 in Andretti Autosport, the driver who you mentioned won round 1 last year.
And looking at row number 5, Romain Grosjean, who comes over from Formula One. He will be alongside a very talented driver who has been working and knocking for a couple of years now to get his way full-time into IndyCar racing, talking about R.C. Enerson. Then in row 6, another driver who returns to the series.
Good to see Ed Jones back. He's with Dalekin Racing with Vassar Sullivan. He took a year off last year studying at MIT, Jake. We can talk about that a little bit later. He's starting alongside the 8 of Marcus Ericsson.
I'll tell you what, but studying at MIT, you talk about some of the great ring minds and just some of the great math minds that are taking place in this. One of those will be coming up here in this starting grid that we'll get to in a couple of rows. But in row 7 right now, Max Chilton alongside of Simon Sykes.
Will Power almost won multiple times last season. We'll see if he can get his first IndyCar iRacing challenge this week. He's starting on the inside of row 8 next to Dalton Kellett.
And in row 9, it is Joseph Newgarden alongside one of those we talked about who just has that engineering mind because his father was a great racing engineer, and Charlie Kimball, who starts in that car number 11 for AJ Foyt Racing, will be alongside Joseph Newgarden. He kind of has that same mindset as the cars are rolling out on the course right now as we speak. Everybody is locked into their simulators, and we are getting set for what should be a lot of fun here this evening. And Katie, we talked schedule itself, and this is the first of 3, and we don't know yet whether or not it's going to be a season that ends on road and street courses or an oval.
Yeah, next week, Jake, we're going to head to Homestead. Nice, warm, sunny Miami. And then week 3, fans, this is a chance for you to get involved. Want them to race at Sebring, or are we going to head to Kentucky?
Again, the road course of Montreal as they are getting set here to get underway and get racing. This will be a 37-lap event as the field works their way through here. And you look at it right now, 32-lap event. And already you take a look at it, we get a little side-by-side action and the field itself with Alex Polo out in front.
Yeah, I really expected Alex Polo to do well in this IndyCar iRacing Challenge, Jake. He is rated very highly on iRacing, an A 4.99 rating on iRacing.
And again, the iRacing, the way that they work it here is they do get a rating each and every event. And we talked about the Sage Karam has been so good, but Alex Polo really, as you see Alex Polo out in front here with about a 3-car length advantage, Alex Polo is one who has really asserted himself and I think had a rise here. It's like anything else, Katie. Practice makes perfect, every driver aspiring to be perfect.
Yeah, there's a lot of drivers that also spend a lot of time on iRacing, Jake. A few other drivers that pop out at me are Romain Grosjean, who actually, Jake, owns an esports team of his own. He runs more than 20 sim racers, and over the time, Jake, they have won over 45 races.
How about that? You take a look at James Davison and as well Scott McLaughlin, and that's, you're talking about a Kiwi and an Australian. They're used to being side by side. They were right there. They avoid some contact. Looks like McLaughlin is going to get the better of that battle so far as James Davison tucks in behind him. Leader right now is Alex Polo. He is in front of Scott McLaughlin. Davison running in 3rd, and then Sato and Enerson rounding out the top 5. Look at McLaughlin in terms of, and again, that's Alex Polo that you see just in front of McLaughlin, and James Davison right there on the rear of it. And now we've got, again, side-by-side racing as we take a look here, and the pass is going to be made. I'm trying to determine who that is that just made that pass into the 5th position lead, but Alex Polo continues to be the leader.
It looked like it was R.C. Enerson moving into that 5th position. He's with Top Gun Racing, Jake. That's one of the newest teams in the IndyCar series this year. They were supposed to make their debut in the Indianapolis 500 last year. Of course, postponed that due to COVID-19. So we hope to see them running in the Indianapolis 500 this year and several other races as well.
And again, you see a little bit of brake smoke coming up, because the reality is that when you're in these simulators and you are racing them, as you take a look there, you're on board with Braden Eaves. These drivers, in terms of the finesse that goes into it, it is no different than when you are racing. You've got to make sure that you are very careful, you're very soft on those pedals, and you're working your way through. And that's exactly what we see. Just when you start to get just a little bit over anxious, the brake smoke can come up. This is a look at Simon Sykes as he takes a look. Braden Eaves does. Eaves is going to take the position. That puts Braden Eaves now into the top 10.
And Jake, Braden Eaves is just a 21-year-old Ohio. Last year, some race fans may remember him from a pretty nasty wreck at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course, where he broke several bones on his skull and even above his eye. And now you can see he has recovered nicely, and he will be joining the Indy Pro 2000 series this year.
We are already nearly 10% of the way through this particular event, working lap number 3 of 32. The leader again is Polo, just in front of Scott McLaughlin. Then it is James Davison, Takuma Sato, R.C. Enerson, Romain Grosjean rounding out the top 6. Then it's Marcus Ericsson, Sage Karam, Pietro Fittipaldi, Braden Eaves rounding out the top 10. McLaughlin is a guy that a lot of people, Katie, are going to have an eye on this year, because this is somebody coming from sports cars. There was a lot of praise and a lot of expectation for him when the announcement was made that he would be driving for Roger Penske. And I don't think there's any question about the fact that this driver from New Zealand, who is running right now, you take a look there at the PPG machine, running second in this event, but I think he's going to be running up front for a lot of events over the course of the year.
Well, Jake, he's a rookie, which is funny to say, 3-time Supercars champion, but how about that rookie class in the IndyCar series this year?
Yeah, the rookie class in terms of, you look at a guy like McLaughlin, Katie, I think the thing that's interesting about it is it doesn't feel like he's a rookie, right? We've been talking about him for so long, and the expectation is there. And then you also obviously have some movement in terms of drivers that are going to be in different seats over the course of the year. One of those rookies you're talking about, you take a look at it right there. We talk about Romain Grosjean, who I think as you take a look there, gets a little bit loose. There's the spin. He's spinning around, and you say, you know what? Just get right back on the track, make sure there's no contact. But, he made got a lot of attention for not only a horrific accident he was involved with in Formula One, but I think the manner in which the outpouring of support for him afterwards, you saw how likable he is, within the paddock. But in addition to that, kind of the way he handled the whole situation, I thought was pretty impressive.
Certainly impressive for him to really jump back right into a race car, and especially to a series that he isn't really familiar with. I am extremely excited to see him in his debut at Barber Motorsports Park. I have great things from the team and his testing so far, great from the IndyCar officials that are around the office that have gotten to know him pretty well. R.C. Enerson is another one that we hope to see in soon as well.
Talking about Romain Grosjean, I found it interesting in talking to him as we take a look at Takano here, but Romain Grosjean, a driver that you think of, because he is French, you would think that he is from France. Actually grew up in Switzerland and told me that he never actually lived in France. It was his mother who was a French national, but when she moved to Switzerland, she gave up her citizenship. But in between the time when she moved to Switzerland and actually became a mother, there was a rule passed that you could then take back your citizenship if you so chose. She chose so, and as a result of that, he was declared a French citizen when he was born. There is all you need to know there about that. I'm very proud of
One of the things I like about you, Jake, is that you know the most random facts.
That's pretty random.
Just like that.
There's no doubt it's pretty random.
Romain is actually in Switzerland right now, where it's about 2:45 a.m.
Yeah, so listen, he is excused if he got a little bit loose there. Let's take a look forward with Scott McLaughlin. But, it's 2:45 in the morning. He might be a little fatigued. It's understandable.
I mean, pop some coffee.
There you take a look at Scott McLaughlin as you are on board with them. That is on your left as he works his way through these turns. And you can see with these simulators just exactly the instantaneous nature of it that you're seeing on board that number 3 PPG machine.
The real dirt that we need to know is, what's the dog's name?
Are you going to find that out?
I will.
That's the dog. The dog obviously is very excited. It looks like it might be 2:45 in the morning for the dog as well, right?
Clearly not too interested in IndyCar racing.
Scott McLaughlin running through right now. He is in second place, trying to track leader of this event, which is Alex Palou. And as Katie had talked about, Alex Palou trying to improve that already very good iRacing score, as McLaughlin running through the course here of Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and doing so, keeping a very tight line, good line for him. You can see the focus there on the left-hand side of just how he is managing to keep track right now. Looks up, probably looks to see exactly what the gap is. or to find out whether or not his dog has woken up just yet. Charlie Kimball, also in that Novo Nordisk, which has become such a great sponsor for him over the course of his career, as Kimball works that AJ Foyt racing machine around here in Montreal.
And really, if we just jump back to Scott Mclaughlin for a minute, his real introduction to IndyCar fans last year, Jake, was this IndyCar iRacing Challenge. He won 2 rounds, Barber and Indianapolis.
Does Charlie Kimball have a ping pong table? Did I see a ping pong table in the background? It's good to know that he's spending more time, obviously, in the simulator here as Charlie Kimball trying to work in on Joseph Newgarden. That, of course, is the battle for 17th. Newgarden running in 17th right now, and Charlie Kimball is at 18th. Leader continues, Alex Polo. Taking a look right now, the battle that you see on the racetrack, and that is, I believe that we saw Dalton Kellett. Indeed, Dalton Kellett in car number 4, and he is trying to work his way around Simon Sykes. You see him side by side. It's going to shut that door. That, again, is the battle for the 12th position.
Another battle that I'm watching, Jake, is Will Power. He just worked his way into the top 10, and he finished in the top 5 in the first 4 rounds of Season 1 of the IndyCar iRacing Challenge. He is hungry to get that win here in Season 2.
Simon Sykes, by the way, was able to get that position back from Dalton Kellett. So as a result of that, he finds his way now running into the 12th position. Nikita Lestoshkin, you see him right now. Again, Ed Carpenter Racing, car number 21, and that's a really good vantage point there, and you get a look at what exactly he's feeling, what he is seeing in the cockpit as he works his way around here. Might I add, Katie, beautiful day in Montreal.
Much nicer than it was here in Indianapolis today. Nikita, by the way, Jake, will be racing in Indy Lights this year with HD Motorsports. He's been in the Road to Indy ladder for several years now after he moved himself to LA when he was just 16 years old, moved to California from Russia, and now we're going to take a look at Marcus Ericsson.
Marcus Ericsson has Eaves right there on his heels. He had a little bit loose in the curbing, did Marcus Ericsson, and as a result of that, maybe that balance went away just a little bit, and as a result, Braden Eaves is able to get a position on him, put Eaves now into the 7th spot.
You know how exciting it must be for Road to Indy drivers to really be battling, quote unquote, right alongside some of their IndyCar heroes.
You know, so many drivers, I think, Kate, you talk about exactly that. You know, getting a feel for exactly what goes into, and maybe even getting a sense of when to go, when not to. But the drivers who have said, in preparation in particular for a new course on the schedule, or for maybe a new course simply for them, this iRacing, getting familiar with the courses themselves, it does give you just kind of that muscle memory, knowing exactly how to maneuver their way through a course. I
mean, how can it not help? Get that muscle memory, like you said, you catch the flow. It looks like we had an off track there that we can get a closer look at in just a few minutes. But the iRacing simulators really give these drivers a chance to get into a rhythm, get into the flow, know where those brake zones are, where those bumps and different lines are throughout all of these tracks.
Braden Eaves got around Marcus Ericsson. Pietro Fittipaldi is now going to try to do the same, and he does exactly that, and does so quickly. Went right through that Husky chocolate machine. I think there's a problem for Marcus Ericsson because Will Power is going to be the next to attack him.
I am really excited to see Pietro back in IndyCar this year, Jake. After that crash he had in Spa in 2018, he spent several months actually living in his motorhome over at IMS and working through therapy and different courses with the Trammell. Get back in a race car. He was back in a race car in less than a few months. Doctors told him it would be over a year, but then he made his second debut at Mid-Ohio, and I think he can do some great things.
I want to remind you as we take a look at Takuma Sato, who had an incident. Let's take a look at exactly what happened to the 2-time Indianapolis 500 winner with Takuma Sato. This was just moments ago, and Sato in car number 30, and right behind Takuma Sato,
looks like that's Sage Karam,
is Sage Karam. And well, I'll tell you what, all of a sudden Karam not afraid to be a little bit aggressive. Maybe that air got irritated. Those two have a history at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway at the outset of the Indianapolis 500. That time it was Takuma Sato who took a spin. Want to remind you folks, by the way, it's in this and you're thinking to yourself as you look at Will Power, hey, I might be the next Will Power. You very well may be. And perhaps you'd like to find that out. iRacing memberships are available at iRacing.com. New memberships right now are 40% off. Again, you see it right there, iRacing.com for information on how to start your iRacing career.
And Jake, just as you mentioned, Will Power.
I could see you doing that, Katie.
You could see me in iRacing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, I was a kid that was never allowed to do video games. So no. I don't think I can.
You were allowed to do racing.
I was allowed to race.
But
I was
not allowed
to
do
do video games. You know,
what better way to get back at your parents for their restrictions than get video games now at 40% off?
You know what? I'm going to ask my husband for that.
iRacing.com. Yeah, but listen, you're married now, Katie. You can get out from underneath the wings and rules of your parents, right?
I just mean that's why I'm not good at video games.
We had talked about the schedule as well. Let's talk about that. Again, Alex Polo is the leader. Scott McLaughlin is second currently. James Davison runs in third place. But the schedule we talked about, this is race number 1 of season number 2. It was a lot of fun last year. People were, you know, there was a void, and there was an absolute void that was filled by folks that to watch racing, wanted to get that fix, and that was exactly provided, and there was a demand for it again this year. What a better way to get the racing season kicked off than this, but this is the first of 3 events, Katie.
Yeah, so we're in Montreal this week. Then we'll come back stateside next Thursday, Jake. We're going to head to warm and sunny Homestead, Miami. And then, fans, we want you to get involved. Are we going to go road racing, road street course racing at Sebring, a bumpy road course down in Florida? Or are we going to come back to the Midwest and do a short oval at Kentucky? What would you pick?
I like the ovals, I'm not going to lie.
Really?
I like it all. You know, this time of year, it's hard to argue with going to Florida, though. So yeah. I would be pleased either way.
You know, I was going to say I would vote for Sebring just because we go from, you know, smooth road course Montreal to a short oval like Homestead, and then throw back in a bumpy road course.
Polo still the leader, and again, the biggest movers on the track far. We had talked about the fact that Kimball and Newgarden swing out towards the back of the field. That's still where they are at this point from where we started. Polo started on pole, leads right now over Scott McLaughlin. Davison running in third, and Sage Karam is in the 4th position.
Here we're watching now, Jake, battle for 8th and the battle for 10th. Willpower in 8th right now, and Takuma Sato on 10th. It looks like Romain Grosjean actually just moved into 10th. Takuma Sato moved into 9th, and Willpower remains.
And Marcus Ericsson is the one that seems to have had some problems again. He went over some curbing earlier. I'm not sure if that didn't disrupt the way that his car is feeling at the moment, but Marcus Ericsson right now running in the 11th position, and you can see it was Romain Grosjean who just got past him. Now we see yet another spin, and that, I'm not sure who that was. Katie, did you catch who that was?
It looked like it was actually Grosjean, who is having a bit of a trouble with those spins.
There seems to be a bit of a jinx that we throw as soon as we talk about somebody, and then lo and behold, they get a little bit loose. But again, you know, that's one of the things I think that is so interesting about this is when you are running it, and if something happens to the balance of your car, whether or not you maybe make a slight contact, maybe you go over too much curbing, those simulators are aware of it, and you've got to be very careful with the way you're handling through the turns.
Yeah, and this is also a whole other challenge for drivers because they could normally lock in on someone else's bumper and really follow them, work to get close to them. So this is another way that they can really hone their skills and find out in other ways how they can get close to another driver.
Just over a third of the way through the race, we are here for the INDYCAR iRacing Challenge in this season debut. Alex Polo continues to be the leader. McLaughlin running in second. James Davison third. Going back to talk about Scott McLaughlin as we see 3-car pack that is working their way right now on the main straight. And the middle of that
looks like RC Enerson leading that pack. You see him in the blue and yellow car. He's the number 70, followed by Pietro Fittipaldi in the 52. That's the purple car that you see right behind him. And of course, Willpower, that black and red car that you're used to.
That trio is just in front of Takuma Sato, and it is Marcus Ericsson that round out the top 10 here on the streets of Montreal. But, you know, it's really interesting because Scott McLaughlin is one that last we talked about, Katie, in sports cars, how much we heard about him, but he also was somebody who was not afraid to get on these simulators in terms of the INDYCAR iRacing and stressing things out.
Yeah, it was really fun to watch him. He settled right in the INDYCAR group very nicely, was competitive right away, and he spends a lot of time on his sim, and we heard just before we got started today that he's got a brand new rig, so that's something we're certainly going to have to ask him about.
I'm crazy. His dog is still asleep, by the way. Let's take a look here at Alex Polo, and Alex Polo is the leader of this race and working his way through and racing in shorts. You gotta love that when you can do that.
He must not be in Indianapolis where it's cold and raining.
That is correct. I'll tell you what, Alex Polo, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch him this year. I think a year ago, Alex Polo's season was such that he always felt like running for Dale Coyne. and rightly so. He had really good, usually up to qualifying efforts and a couple of good qualifying efforts, but just felt like, and it wasn't really at any fault of Dale Coyne or Alex Polo, Katie, but just one of those years where Lady Luck just never fell his way. And you wondered really what was going to happen. I think a lot of people were impressed by his skill set. There was a lot of expectation after a great qualifying effort, for example, at Indianapolis. I talked to him at Mid-Ohio last year towards the end of the race, and he said, I just feel like I need a really good finish to the season to get myself a good ride. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know what he thought of the results, but he ended up with a pretty good ride.
I would say pretty good indeed. I'm really excited to see what he can learn from Scott Zinn this year. You know, a veteran like Scott taking a young guy like Alex Palou under his wing, throw Jimmy Johnson in the mix, and I think you can learn all sorts of things from those two guys.
Yeah, you forget about the fact that Jimmy Johnson will be in that car that will be also shared by Tony Kanaan. So I think fans are going to be very excited to see what happens with that particular team running for Chip Ganassi coming up this season. And again, Alex Palou, yet to have a hiccup here in this particular race.
Looks like Scott Mclaughlin is slowly starting to close that gap. It was just over 3 seconds. Actually, it looks like James Davison just got around Scott Mclaughlin. So your leader now, Alex Palou, followed by James Davison, just about 5.6 seconds. Scott McLaughlin's actually dropping through the field very quickly, Jake. It looks like something have happened to his car. If we could go back and get a look and see if it was something on track or if it was maybe something from home. But Alex Palou currently leading still. James Davison just under 6 seconds.
Yeah, Scott McLaughlin does have clearly an issue because he's now dropping down to the 9th position. So something with that PPG machine, it would appear. Let's watch it here and see if we can find. Now, this is Will Power that we're on board with here. Will Power, as you see now, again, when you're getting ready to watch Will Power here in terms of, now that right there, that is deciding to go ahead and go on a pit road at the very last second. You see, backs up a little bit on that Verizon machine, but I'll tell you what, that is a heck of a move for Will Power. When you decide at the last second you're going to pit, or you decide, you know what, I'm going to pit, but I'm going to wait till the last second before I decelerate in doing so.
Yeah, certainly an impressive iRacing move there by Will Power. These drivers do get one fast repair here for this race, Jake.
Mclaughlin has fallen down to the 12th position, by the way. This is the battle right now, the 9th position. Again, these are a couple of newcomers, names that we're getting familiar with as we speak. It is Romain Grosjean right now in the 10th spot, and he is trying to hold on to that. But right now making that move, that is Lestoshkin, who is going to be able to, as their side-by-side contact is made, and that's exactly all of a sudden in iRacing, and you can see that Romain Grosjean, he's had a heck of a, and once again, his car gets away from him a little bit.
Yeah, it looks like Nikita Lestoshkin also had a little bit of an off-track experience there, so certainly a good battle to get into the top 10.
And so, again, this is what happens when you get out there, and Lestoshkin all of a sudden, boom, get that curbing, balance is going to go away. We'll see what that does in terms of where they are right now. It was the battle for the 9th position. We'll see where it settles as you take a look now at Ed Jones in car number 18.
Yeah, like we mentioned before, Ed Jones actually spent 2020 studying at MIT for what he thought might be a career outside of racing or a racing car driver. He was studying digital business management throughout 2020. So after a season with Dale Coyne Racing, then Ed Carpenter Racing, Ganassi Racing, of course, as well, it's certainly good to see Ed Jones back in the IndyCar series.
By the way, Charlie Kimball let me know that he's stuck on pit road. So if you want to know where Charlie Kimball is, Charlie, my apologies that Charlie Kimball is stuck on pit road, but there is your official update. That is the best kind of pit road reporting you can get when Kimball himself says, hey, guys, I'm stuck on pit road here. What do you want me to do?
Jake, play-by-play, pit reporter, what do you not do?
That's right. We try to do what we can. But Charlie Kimball, I don't know, reboot Charlie and get back out there. As we take a look now, that's Ed Jones who's going to be coming on the pit road.
Thanks for the update, Charlie.
This is part of what goes into this in terms of the IndyCar iRacing Challenge. You do have stops. You've got to make sure that you're adhering to, as you can see there, the speed limit rules on pit road. Alex Palou is still the leader. It is Romain Grosjean who is running in second position. But again, this will all cycle through once everybody makes their pit stops.
Yeah, it looks like things are cycling through right now. Romain Grosjean was running just outside of the top 10, and we know Scott McLaughlin, of course, had those issues as well. Also, Alex Palou staying out just a little bit longer than the rest of the field, Jake.
By the way, Scott McLaughlin's dog's name is Chase. That's what we found out.
Did you find out?
Katie, again.
You know people.
I'm a pit reporter. I do a little bit of everything. Thank you to Mike Thompson and Tanya for letting me know that. That was apparently reported on Twitch just a little bit ago. Working here, lap number 18, so we are just past the halfway mark. This race number 1 of the IndyCar iRacing Challenge.
Looks like Alex Polo is now coming to pit road, so does that mean that Romain Grosjean will take over the lead?
It does appear as though that is exactly what's going to happen as Alex works his way slowly. He was the leader when he surrendered the lead to go on. It means that Romain Grosjean will indeed take over the lead, and Scott Mclaughlin now runs back into the second position. So any issue that McLaughlin had when he was dropping, I think it might have been simply that he stayed out late in his sequence, later than did others, and so as a result of that, now finds himself running in the second position. Polo was the leader, got that service, now works his way off of pit road.
We'll see how quickly he can work his way back up the field. He seemed to be pretty smooth around Montreal before that pit stop.
That is the rear you see there of the car of Scott Mclaughlin. He is currently running as the leader in this event. Alex Polo runs second, then James Braden Eaves, Sage Karam, Will Power, R.C. Enerson, Pietro Fittipaldi, and Takuma Sato before Marcus Ericsson rounding out the top 10. You see how McLaughlin likes to work that inside line. That is one of the keys here of just doing what you can on this 14-turn course to slice off anywhere you can. I think it's interesting when you watch Polo on board. You can see that the whole key, Katie, and you know this from racing, is just simply to find anywhere you can to shave that racetrack just a little bit, dive into the corners, try to get around as quickly as you can.
Yeah, and it looks like Alex Polo cycled back out into second, so he really didn't lose much time, Jake.
You can see, great look at the steering wheel of Alex Polo and just find out exactly in terms of the way he's working the throttle, the way he works the pedals, the way he works that car. Car number 10 for Alex Polo for Chip Ganassi Racing. Now his job is to chase a guy who has Chase as his co-pilot, talking about Scott McLaughlin, who's the leader.
What I like about this camera view specifically, Jake, is just how realistic it looks. I mean, that looks like someone's real hands. That's really how the IndyCar steering wheel looks to a driver when they're out during a race.
And that's what it looks like when you're trying to chase on one of the real promising up-and-comers within the IndyCar iRacing Challenge. We're talking about Scott McLaughlin in that PPG car number 3. He is the leader right now, and he is starting to try to get himself some breathing room, but I'll tell you what, he's a pretty tough cookie coming in on him here in the form of Alex Polo. Let's take a look at Cam, if we will, which is a really good view. We're talking about James Davison's view.
Yeah, James Davison currently running in the 4th position. That's Braden Eaves, the Road to Indy featured driver this week, just ahead of him as he tries to track down Braden, just a few seconds behind him right now.
Working his way, we're talking about James Davison. You see that's the exact view that a driver sees, and you see, look at how much those hands are working the wheel and everything that goes into one of those left-handed turns. You saw how far his left hand came over.
And even, Jake, you can see the windscreen. The detail is incredible.
It is, and you know, the other thing too, like anything else, I think a lot of drivers wanted to know with the aero screen, you know, working in front, once you watch it for about 5 seconds, you kind of forget it's even there. And I think drivers would tell you that that's the exact same thing that happened. Scott McLaughlin now getting all kinds of pressure up. That's Alex Polo who's trying to take back over the lead. Polo working his way in on that PPG machine, not able to make the move just yet, but he is absolutely stalking now Scott McLaughlin, just a 0.2 of a second lead for McLaughlin. Polo is right there behind him, and you get the feeling that Polo now, Katie, is just waiting for his moment to pound.
I want to know is, do these drivers' heart rates spike on iRacing as if they would on the real track when they get alongside a driver like Alex Polo pulling alongside Scott McLaughlin once again?
The way McLaughlin did, we thought he had a problem. He short pitted very quickly, which is why he had fallen down to the 12th position. But Scott McLaughlin now back into the lead, but US right now, because you can see he's got Alex Polo all over the rear of that number 3 PPG machine.
You know what I like right now? Look at Scott's eyes.
Yeah, he's looking at it. Oh, wait a minute, which way do I go here? And you can see Alex Polo just above him on the screen, just below him on the racetrack. And look at McLaughlin going high and shutting the door on Polo.
I love how we can get this split screen here, Jake. We can see how intense Scott's eyes are there. Alex, how focused he is as well. And then seeing the real-time battle play out on the right.
Boy, they are side by side. Looked like Polo is going to be able to close that contact. It's McLaughlin that's not going to get the better end of that. He goes into the grass. Alex Polo back into the lead.
Looks like Alex will gain a little bit of an advantage on Scott. Now Scott has 12 laps to track him back down and put on a show for us.
And he might be able to do exactly that. We shall
can.
see, because you can bet that now he is going to be hungry. That is Braden Eaves just behind Scott McLaughlin. He's trying to stay in that third position. They've got a pretty good gap back before you get to fourth place running Sage Karam.
It looks like we're going to get a replay of that incident between Alex Polo and Scott McLaughlin. Here you see Alex Polo that's Scott McLaughlin up ahead. Alex Polo pulling up alongside him, and we'll see what goes down between them.
It really looked like McLaughlin, he locked him up just a little bit there, and then I think he thought he could come back up high. Polo went down just a little bit. You saw that contact, and Polo gets the better of it. Interesting thing, when it happened, we were watching, and McLaughlin wasn't a lot of facial expression from him.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I've still got 12 laps to try to make it up.
I think his expressions are all in his eyes. You can see his eyes get bigger, they get smaller when he's focusing, bigger when he's surprised by something. So that was entertaining to watch for me.
Charlie Kimball has let me know that it might have been user error that stuck him on pit lane. So he does admit that, which is admirable. He then says that he would be happy on Joseph Newgarden and ping pong.
Oh. That
we know
sounds
he's
like
got
maybe another battle.
We know he could have a home table advantage. No question about that. Here is the battle for fourth. Currently, it belongs to Sage Karam. Right behind him, you see there, that is Jameson that is trying to get that fourth position. Right now, it belongs to Sage Karam. He has himself a 9/10 of a second lead. Does Sage Karam, holding on tenuously, perhaps to that fifth spot.
And look, once again, creeping his way up there, Jake. He started back in the pack, worked his way into the top 10, now has worked his way up to 6th.
There you take a look at Sage Karam. That is the onboard from the rear of that 98 machine. That is Sage Karam that you see on the left with the yellow gloves. He is currently running in the fourth position. He is between Eaves and James Davison. And Sage Karam has, if you have seen a lot of these race car drivers when they're at home, it is not uncommon at all to see those helmets that are collected along the wall. And oftentimes, Katie, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're even a helmet that they have worn. Oftentimes, a lot of trading goes on between the drivers when it comes to collecting that sort of memorabilia.
Yeah, I know one that jumps out to me. It looks like Marco Andretti's helmet right above his hands there, I believe. And I know they're good friends, so that would make sense for him to have one of Marco's helmets. Of course, he's in Marco's car this week as well.
It also wouldn't have been difficult if he wanted to get that from Marco. They probably could have just walked down the street and done it, right? Both
Exactly.
of them natives of Nazareth, Pennsylvania. As we watch Sage Karam, he is running in the fourth position. Braden Eaves just took over the second spot. He got it from Scott McLaughlin. Alex Polo is still the leader as Sage Karam has James Davison that he is trying to hold off.
And look, here's a look at Nikita Lestoshkin in the 21. On the left-hand side, you see his home simulator. Jakey's got some great lighting going on there. Looks like he's got a whole room.
I mean, this looks like he might be in a club somewhere, right?
He's certainly dedicated to the art of sim racing, that's for sure. Nikita running in 12th right now.
Been an active day for Lestoshkin. He already has had a couple of offs, but worked his way back in. And as you talked about, running in the 12th position. And he's been very active in that number 21 machine for Ed Carpenter Racing in this INDYCAR iRacing Challenge. As we watch the way he works the wheel, and you can see from inside the guy who runs in the 12th position. You can hear him working through that gearbox as well. Every single detail that goes into racing is in fact part of this simulator racing. And you see just how fast and how switchbacks those turns can come up on.
Yeah, Jake Nikita filling in the 21 this week. Simon Sykes, another Road to Indy driver, filling in on the 20 this week. Some news from the Ed Carpenter Racing stable is that both Ed Carpenter and Connor Daly will be back next week in Homestead. Here's a look at Simon Sykes. He's filling in for 20. Connor Daly tweeted just a few moments before we got started that he actually had some commitments with the U.S. Air Force this week. He's a little busy, and he'll be joining us in home.
No gloves for Sykes, but you saw that wheel worked awfully quick on him. And again, when you start working your way through, you've got to have a fast reaction time. You've got to be able to have a strong grip on that wheel. Simon Sykes right now runs in the 16th position. He is just a spot in front of Joseph Newgarden. The car that he is trying to now reel in would be Dalton Kellett.
This looks like it's a Braden Eaves. He's the Road to Indy featured driver this week. He'll be racing in Indy Pro 2000 this year. It'll be his second season with exclusive Autosport. Let's see where he's running right now, Jake.
Braden Eaves currently runs in the second position, but you can see he's got a pretty good gap back before he can get in to Alex Polo. As a matter of fact, the difference right now for Alex Polo, he finds himself 4 seconds in front of Braden Eaves. This is Romain Grosjean, who you see working right now. Grosjean currently running, and he's again had an active day as well. We talked about some of the incidents he's been involved in. Runs in the 13th position, does Romain Grosjean.
Jake, he looks pretty awake for 3 o'clock in the morning.
He does.
That's not how I look at 3 a.m.
He's looking at it and he's saying, you know what, here we go. He's going to work his way through, and looks very intent, very focused, does Romain Grosjean. And I think a lot of people are going to be excited to see what he can do this coming year as well. Looks up, probably checks to see exactly where he is in terms of the scoring charts right now, and where he is when he looks up and he sees himself is running in the 13th position.
Jake, I read an article earlier today where a reporter had asked Romain what he was going to do before and after this race, and he said, well, probably just hop out of bed and hop back into bed.
There you go. Why not, right? R.C. Enerson and Will were battling for the 6th position, but actually it's going to turn out to be R.C. Enerson and Pietro Fittipaldi battling for the 7th spot. Right now, 7th being held by Enerson. That is Pietro Fittipaldi just behind him. This is a pretty good battle. 6, 7, 8. Power has a sizable gap back now all of a sudden between himself and Enerson, but Pietro Fittipaldi, there you see, he's going to, boy, what he's going to do is make contact. He started to take a move there, did Pietro Fittipaldi on Enerson. Enerson lost it, put Pietro Fittipaldi into the 7th spot.
And Jake, those three being Will Power, Pietro Fittipaldi, and R.C. Enerson have been battling all day long. It seems like switching positions between the three of them as they work their way through the field.
We'll see what allows R.C. Enerson to cycle back, because Takuma Sato and Marcus Ericsson were just behind him. We'll see if they manage to get past R.C. Enerson before Enerson could get his car back on to the track. Again, at the time, that was the battle for the 7th position. We'll see just how many spots that costs R.C. Enerson when all is said and told. Alex Polo is still the leader. Braden Eaves runs 2nd. It's Mclaughlin, who you see there running in the 3rd spot.
And Sage Karen in 4th. Jake, James Davison rounds out our top 5.
James Davison, one who we have become so familiar with over the course of the years. Same too with Sage Karam, who has proven himself to be, in terms of the INDYCAR iRacing and INDYCAR racing as well, one that I know people love to watch what he is able to do. And Sage Karam trying to work his way in right now. This is the battle for the 3rd. Again, it belongs to Scott McLaughlin. It is Sage Karam of Pennsylvania that's trying to get it from him.
Jake, always fun to see what Sage Karam and Dreyer Reinbold Racing can do at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Ran a few road course races at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway last year as well. Looking forward to seeing him back in the car. Working
here on lap number 26 of 32. That is Scott McLaughlin running in the 3rd position, and he is getting all kinds of heat now. Sage Karam, who has nosed the podium in these events, is really working in, but he's going to have to do so against a guy who's a pretty tough cookie in his own right, talking about Scott McLaughlin.
Yeah, and those two battled in Season 1 of the INDYCAR iRacing Challenge. Here's a look at, on the onboard from Sage Karam as he works to track down Scott. You can see he's working to close that gap. Gets a little loose there.
He did get loose. You could see all of a sudden the balance went away. He went up on that curbing, and that throws things into a tizzy, and that wheel responds. You see it again happen there with Karam. Katie, reality is when you start to get on that white curbing, these simulators know it, and they will challenge your hands with that steering wheel.
That's something that happens in real INDYCAR and iRacing INDYCAR as well.
Sage Karam working in, trying to close in on Scott McLaughlin. This is the battle for the 3rd position. That is McLaughlin you see in front of Sage Karam. As a matter of fact, he is now starting to threaten, was McLaughlin for a split second there, of leaving Sage Karam and closing in on Braden Eaves, because Eaves runs in the 2nd position. That might be McLaughlin's greater focus now than worrying about where Sage Karam is.
Yeah, I think if I was Scott, I would certainly be more focused on the guy ahead of me rather than the guy behind me, trying to track down Braden Eaves, closing that gap back up to Alex Polo after that incident just a few laps ago.
You notice that those Firestone softer compound red tires, that's Scott McLaughlin's on right now. That's what virtually the entire field, I would assume, is going to run on. That's that soft rip from Firestone that allows you to go just a little bit faster. We'll see when Scott McLaughlin came in, he did a quick short pit. So in terms of the tires themselves, see what happens in terms of tires going off. Here's a battle with Marcus Ericsson that you're watching. That is, I believe, just in front of him, Ed Jones. It is, in fact, that he's trying to close in on. This is the battle for 10th. Ed Jones has it. Marcus Ericsson would like to get it. Ericsson is all over the rear of that 18 machine.
And again, that's a battle for a position inside the top 10 for round 1 here from Montreal of the INDYCAR iRacing Challenge.
Sealmaster, the sponsor we have become so familiar with when it comes to machine for Dale Coyne Racing. It is Ed Jones who is in it right now. Marcus Ericsson is getting it within his sights but probably would like to get a better look at it, because right now Marcus Ericsson running in the 11th spot gets a good run here on Ed Jones. This is the number 10th. Jones is still able to hold him off. Leader continues to be Alex Polo at the front of the field as we start to run down here in this particular race. 28 laps complete out of 32. Ericsson again gets a good run on Ed Jones, but then you see once they get the exit of the turns, Jones starts to get some of that back. Ed Jones has himself about a 6-car length advantage over Marcus Ericsson, who again, you see going into the turns, Ericsson is able to close it up, but then exit of the turn, Ed Jones again gets breathing room.
Yeah, just 4 laps to go in this opening round of season 2 of the INDYCAR iRacing Challenge, and it has been a dominant day for Alex Polo, scoring the pole, only losing lead when it came to, and he's back in the lead now by about 4 seconds.
Ed Jones holding off as we watch it there. Boy, that was an off-wide exit for Mark Ericsson, and so Ed Jones starts to get himself that breathing room that he was hoping for over, of course, behind him, Marcus Ericsson. Alex Polo is your leader. Braden Eaves runs second. Scott McLaughlin is third. Sage Karam runs. James Davison runs in the 5th position. The only driver so far that has dropped out of this event is Charlie Kimball, who is back to playing ping pong, it would appear. But again, driver error, he admits it. No harm, no foul. Speaking of which, Katie, let's get it one more time. For those who would like to be able to join in themselves and get into iRacing, and why wouldn't you by watching this INDYCAR iRacing Challenge, you can see just how incredibly realistic it is. You can go to iRacing.com today for information on how to start your iRacing career. Log on to iRacing.com, and again, 40% off now if you go ahead and sign up. Ed Jones, Marcus Ericsson continue in that battle for the 10th spot. Jones continues to hold off the Swede.
That really is a great deal for race fans who want to get in on iRacing. I've heard from several race fans who've actually raced alongside some of the INDYCAR drivers on iRacing, which is a really fun experience.
I mean, how cool would that be if you're a race fan to go out and you never know, might be partaking in one of the races and get your opportunity to have fun and race against.
Yes.
Great shot there. You see the low camera angle of Ed Jones, Marcus Ericsson just behind him. That is Lestoshkin that runs just behind Marcus Ericsson. This is the battle for 10th, 11th, and 12th as they run right now, closing in here on the final 3 laps of this event. Another good battle on the racetrack. Boy, that's a really good battle right there, as a matter of fact. This is the battle for, I believe, the 13th position.
Between Romain Grosjean and Max Chilton.
Max Chilton, who we haven't talked a lot about. He's got that familiar Gallagher paint scheme and going to work his way in on Grosjean. Romain Grosjean, talked about earlier, he's had a couple of incidents so far today and a couple of offs, but again, as Katie had mentioned, he gets a little bit of a pass. It's 2:45 in Switzerland where he's racing right now, but you can see Max Chilton trying to close in. Yeah,
actually a little surprised by that. Romain Grosjean owns his own sim racing team called R8G Esports, as it looks like we have an incident there. Maybe we can get a closer look at exactly who that was. It looks like actually Joseph Newgarden took a spin there, but we'll swing back to Romain Grosjean. He has his own sim racing team with over 20 sim drivers, 45 wins, Jake.
45 wins. As we take a look here, let's look in on the leader. We're talking about Alex Polo, who is leading this event, and we talked about the fact that Alex Polo wanted to try to his already very stout iRacing score, and Katie, he may be well on his way to doing exactly that.
Yeah, a lead almost 4 seconds over Braden Eaves, followed by Scott McLaughlin. He's had some good battles, but no one can get past him today. A dominant day as he started from the pole. Lost the lead only through pit cycles, and now he is back at front. As you mentioned, his iRacing score, Jake, an A at 4.99.
There is Alex Polo. There is Braden Eaves just behind him as they work their way around. They are to try to see the white flag here, knowing that that means just 1 lap to go in this race number 1, season number 2 of the INDYCAR iRacing Challenge. Alex Polo had led early. He lost the lead through pit cycling when Scott McLaughlin was able to get out in front of him, and then Polo was able to make the pass on track to get that lead back. And now Alex Polo trying to hold on in front of Braden Eaves. Scott McLaughlin in 3rd, James Davis in 4th, Sage Karam runs in 5th. White flag has been shown. It's the final lap for Alex Polo.
Something pretty major is going to have to happen here, Jake, for anybody to catch Alex Polo. He's going to have to make a mistake or really a miracle from another driver as we take another look at Romain Grosjean as he tries to work his way up through the field as well. Here's a look at the battle for 4th, James Davison, Sage Karam, not far behind him in that black number 98.
So Karam, who had been running in the 4th position, Davison got past him. That puts Davison into 4th. Karam now in that 5th spot and trying to get back. I think Karam was thinking he might have a shot at him. Instead now finds himself chasing James Davison. This is the battle for the 4th position. It's all happening on the final lap of this event while Alex Polo runs in front of the field. Still working their way through as Alex Polo now is trying to get towards that checkered flag in the NTT Data car number 10. Alex Polo here in event number 1 on the final lap maintains that lead over Braden Eaves. It has been a really smooth run here in race number 1, season number 2, the debut for Alex Polo. Checkered flag is out. Alex Polo finally can smile. He has won here in Montreal.
Yeah, and you saw as soon as he crossed that finish line, Jake, a big smile came over Alex Polo's face. It's a great feature to be able to look in on these guys' faces as they take the checkered flag. Sage Karam battling with James Davison.
James Davison trying to hold off Sage Karam. This would be for the 4th position because Eaves and Mclaughlin have already rounded out the podium, but it looks like Davison is indeed going to finish in 4th. He's going to hold off Sage Karam. There you see, can we get maybe some donuts, some celebration from Alex Polo?
What you got for us, Alex?
Alex Polo, you saw when he was intent, he was focused, and then finally, once that checkered flag fell, you saw the grin come out of the youngster, Alex Polo. Alex Polo has won here in race number 1. We'll look in on the celebration, and we'll talk about what happened here in Montreal. When we come back, this is INDYCAR iRacing Challenge. Back here in Montreal, virtually speaking, INDYCAR iRacing Challenge. Race number 1 is in the books, and that was one, Katie, that Alex Polo, who had started on pole, dominated early through the pit sequencing on himself out of the lead, and then got a little bit aggressive with Scott Mclaughlin. Great racing. Mclaughlin got punched out to the outside just a little bit. Alex Polo back into the lead, but still a good day for Scott Mclaughlin, finishing in 3rd as well.
Have to see Braden Eaves up there as well, Jake. He's our Road to Indy featured driver this week. A great chance for him to battle alongside these IndyCar drivers that he may be battling himself in just a few years. He'll be running in the Indy Pro 2000 series this year with exclusive Autosport, and we'll have a different Road to Indy driver featured each week.
One would assume that Braden Eaves would be very happy with that 2nd place finish, but again, Alex Polo is the winner in this event. Mclaughlin finishing 3rd, James Davison in 4th, Karam finishing in 5th, Pietro Fittipaldi, R.C. Enerson, Takuma Sato, Marcus Ericsson, Nikita Lestoshkin rounding out the top 10 in this event. And I can bet that Alex Polo, I would assume, is going to be a pretty happy guy when we talk to him in just a minute here, Katie.
Yeah, what a way to kick off his IndyCar season. His first with Chip Ganassi Racing, his 2nd overall in the IndyCar series. We'll move through the rest of the field, Jake. Ed Jones finished 11th, Will Power in 12th, Romain Grosjean, a rookie in the IndyCar series this year, in 13th, Max Chilton 14th, Dalton Kellett 15th, Simon Sykes in 16th, Joseph Newgarden in 17th, and as we mentioned, Charlie Kimball, user error, maybe rounded out the field in 18th. Let's talk to the guy who rounded out the podium for us this day, Scott Mclaughlin. Certainly good to see you with us. That was a great battle with Alex Polo.
Yeah, it was good. Thanks very much. It was a lot of fun. Had to try something there in the PPG Chevy. I had to jump in and get some tires and try and get the undercut, but just caught up some traffic. I used my push to pass too much. I'm learning all that. So it was a lot of fun and good racing. Like it was proper racing there, and unfortunately we touched. And sometimes in the iRacing stuff, you know, the touches are bigger than they need to be, but you know, still it gives us a really good real feel of what it's like. And you know, I hope everyone at home enjoyed the race.
What I really loved watching throughout that battle was actually your eyes, because you didn't make any facial expressions other than your eyes got bigger. Yeah, exactly like that. What were you thinking during that?
I'm screwed. I was like, I needed to get a bit more of a gap and try and get away from Alex there, but he come out about a second and a half behind me, and I'm like, oh, this is not going to be good. But yeah, look, the main thing is we got the PPG Chevy on the podium there, and I had a good time. And Alex is a fast racer. He proved it last year. He's going to be fantastic this season in IndyCar, and I'm going to try my best to replicate what I've done today in the real life, but it's going to take a lot of effort.
Yeah, we're certainly excited to have you with us for this 2021 season. Little Birdie told me, though, that you got a new sim rig recently.
Yes, I did. I'm so happy with this thing. I've got it basically set up exactly how I want it for the IndyCar. My position is exactly the same. The seat is basically made for me. It's awesome. My pedals are all the same. It's even down to the throw of the throttle pedal is exactly the same. So
Wow.
it's the best thing I could use for a tool, and I'm absolutely racing deprived. I finished in October. I think everyone finished in October. I'm so bored, so I just want to get racing again. So it's nice to do this.
Just a few weeks away from Barber. Scott, we'll see you there.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Katie, you had mentioned the streets of, or I should say the road course of Barber, April 18th. Let's remember, April 18th is when the NTT IndyCar Series season begins. It will be in Barber. That will be at 3:30. You can see the race coming up 18th on NBC, again, to start the season. But there is still racing to be done here in terms of the IndyCar iRacing Challenge, because event number 1 is done. Event number 2 now moves to an oval.
Yeah, and another name that IndyCar fans need to get used to hearing is Braden Eaves. He was our featured Road to Indy driver this week, and it was a nice surprise to see him finishing on our podium in second. Braden, what did you learn today?
Yeah, I learned I need to be a bit more careful at the start. Maybe get a little bit better qualifying position, but it was a great race. I had really good pace, and I knew that going in. So I was just trying to stay clean on the first lap. Ended up getting hit a little bit, which put me way back. But really happy with the result, and super grateful just to be able to take part in this race alongside fellow IndyCar drivers or all the IndyCar drivers. So it was a really cool experience, and really thankful to IndyCar for putting this on, and Road to Indy for allowing me to drive today.
Yeah, you've had a pretty busy simulator racing season already, or iRacing season already. How did the Road to Indy iRacing series prepare you for today?
Yeah, it was an extremely competitive series. There's a bunch of younger guys that are really into iRacing, so the E-Series that Road to Indy put on was extremely competitive. It's just put in a lot of hours practicing, getting ready, and with the broadcast and a lot of people watching, there's a lot of pressure on for the races. So definitely a good learning experience there, which definitely helped me today.
Well, this is the first time that a lot of IndyCar racing fans are being introduced to you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What are you racing this year? What are your goals?
Yeah, I'm actually sharing a hometown with Graham Rahal. I'm from New Albany, Ohio. I race in Indy Pro 2000 with Exclusive Autosport. An incredible team. I raced last year, and unfortunately my season got cut short due to a crash at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But we're back this year and testing for the new season's about to get really intense in these next couple days and weeks. And then obviously I can't wait to kick it off in Barber, hopefully get some wins to start off the season.
Yeah, Braden, that certainly was a scary crash. I saw it happen. Good to see you healthy once again. We look forward to seeing you back at a racetrack. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, race fans, now it's time to catch up with our winner for round 1 of the IndyCar iRacing Challenge, driver of the number 10 Chip Ganassi Racing for NTT Data, Alex Polo. Alex, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was a tough race, but it was really fun to do.
You had such a dominant day, started from the pole, only lost the lead for a few laps there during the pit cycle. What do you think made the difference for you?
Yeah, qualifying was good. I was a bit scared, to be honest, about qualifying, just because it was so close between, I think, Braden. I thought that Karam was also there, and I just made a really good lap. So it was good to get our first pole. And yeah, race was good. Strategy not, To be honest, it was a really bad strategy, but yeah, we made it. It worked out. It was really on the limit, but it was good.
I got to ask you about the real IndyCar quickly, because you're joining Chip Ganassi Racing this year. Your teammates are Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, Jimmy Johnson. Is that a little bit of extra pressure?
No, that's amazing. That's like the best thing ever. I'm just like really thankful, and I cannot thank Chip Ganassi Racing enough to be able to be part of them. And come on, the teammates I have this year: 6-time IndyCar champion, 7-time NASCAR Cup champion. I have Marcus and I have Tony Kanaan as well there. So it's going to be a good year. Hopefully I can learn as much as possible from them, and hopefully we can keep winning even on the real track.
Last question for you quickly, Alex. That battle got pretty intense between you and Scott McLaughlin, huh?
Yeah, that was intense. It was really on the edge. We were looking at on my Twitch now, and it was really on the edge. I had nowhere to go, to be honest, but I think it was just a racing contact. So I'm really sorry that he ended up losing one position. I think the battle was great. So yeah, I'll chat with him to make sure that everything's fine. But yeah, it worked out for me, and I'm sorry for him.
Hey, we certainly enjoyed it here. Thanks so much, and congratulations, Alex.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, Jake, here's a look at where we're headed next week, sunny Homes, Miami.
It is going to be 1 week from tonight. Basically, same day of the week, Thursday, same time, 6:30. You will be able to watch race number 2 of the IndyCar iRacing Challenge. It takes place, as Katie had mentioned, from the Homestead Miami Speedway. And then again, that fan vote for who or where we will be for race number 3. Race number 1 is in the books from Montreal. Katie, a lot of fun, and I know that Ryan Marine will be joining you for race number 2, and we anticipate the same kind of nonstop action and the fun look inside, everything from the dogs to the backgrounds to the rigs that goes into this for all drivers.
Yeah, and Jake, our field will change up a little bit. We'll exchange some Road to Indy drivers. We'll even have some more IndyCar drivers join us, some big names like Brian Hunter-Reay, Connor Daly, Ed Carpenter, James Hinchcliffe, too, all joining us in these coming weeks.
And don't forget, the IndyCar season will begin April 18th on NBC at 3:30 Eastern. That will be at the Barber Motors. But again, until then, it is 1 week from tonight for race number 2 from Homestead. That begins at 30 right here with IndyCar and the IndyCar iRacing Challenge for race number 2. Congratulations again to Alex Polo on the win tonight. For Katie Kyle, I am Jake Query. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and we'll see you 1 week from tonight.